Imagine this. You wake up one morning to the same routine: coffee, emails, the hum of obligations, when suddenly, a thought pierces through the noise like a blade. What if none of this matters? Not in a nihilistic sense, not in despair, but in a way that feels terrifyingly true. What if everything you've been chasing, success, approval, security, is just a shadow play, a performance for an audience that doesn't exist? This is the question that haunted Leo Tolstoy at the height of his fame. By all accounts, he had everything: wealth, literary immortality, a loving family. Yet at 50, he stood on the edge of a ravine, staring into the abyss, asking himself, why? Why keep living? Why suffer? Why do any of it if, in the end, death erases all meaning? This wasn't depression. It was a reckoning. Most of us, at some point, feel the hollowness behind our daily rituals. We mute it with distractions, ambition, entertainment, addiction, but it lingers, a whisper in the quiet moments. Is this all there is? Tolstoy's crisis wasn't unique. But what makes his story extraordinary is that he solved it. Not with religion, not with philosophy as usual, but by uncovering a truth so simple, it's almost offensive. A truth that, once seen, rewires how you experience reality itself. The paradox of meaning: here's the contradiction. We spend our lives chasing purpose, yet the harder we grasp for it, the more it slips away. The entrepreneur believes wealth will fulfill them until they get it and feel nothing. The artist craves recognition, only to find that applause doesn't silence the void. The philosopher constructs grand theories of existence, yet still wakes up trembling in the night. Why? Because we've been searching in the wrong direction, that we assume meaning is something to be found, a hidden answer waiting in some distant achievement or revelation. But Tolstoy realized the fatal flaw in this thinking. Meaning isn't discovered, it's lived. And yet, that realization alone isn't enough. If it were, we'd all be free. The deeper question is, why do we keep missing it? The illusion of the future we're conditioned to believe fulfillment lies just beyond the horizon. The next promotion, the next relationship, the next spiritual breakthrough. But this is a trick of the mind. Neuroscience reveals that our brains are wired for anticipation, not satisfaction. The moment we attain what we thought we wanted, the dopamine fades and the search resets. This isn't a flaw, it's by design. Evolution doesn't care if we're happy. It cares that we survive. But here's where Tolstoy's insight cuts deeper. We've been taught to confuse motion with meaning, that we mistake productivity for purpose, busyness for being. We fill our lives with goals, assuming that the pursuit of meaning is the same as meaning itself. It's not so if meaning isn't in the future, where is it? Tolstoy's answer emerged not from books, but from a moment of surrender. He stopped searching, and in that stillness, he saw it. But to understand how, we must first dismantle the invisible forces that keep us trapped in the search. Tolstoy's crisis wasn't just personal, it was existential. The more he achieved, the emptier he felt. And the more he thought about meaning, the further it seemed to retreat. This is the cruel irony of the modern mind. We are the only creatures tortured by the question of our own existence. Animals don't lie awake at night wondering if their lives matter. They simply live. But humans? We've been cursed with self-awareness, and with it, the unbearable weight of our own insignificance. Why does this happen? The birth of the ego trap. Freud called it the ego. Jung called it the persona. Sartre called it bad faith. The act of pretending we're fixed, unchanging entities rather than fluid beings in flux. Whatever the term, the mechanism is the same. We construct identities. I am a writer, a parent, a success, a failure, and then mistake these labels for our true selves. But these are fictions, and when life inevitably shatters them, through loss, failure, or the slow erosion of time, we collapse. Tolstoy saw this clearly. After writing War and Peace and Anna Karenina, he was worshipped as a literary god. But the more people praised him, the more he felt like an imposter. Why? Because he knew that Leo Tolstoy, the great author, was just a role. Strip away the fame, the accolades, and who was left? A man staring into the void, asking, what now? The three lies that keep us lost: the achievement delusion. Nietzsche warned of the will to power, the endless drive to conquer, acquire, and dominate as a substitute for meaning. But no victory ever satisfies, because the goalposts always move. Tolstoy had wealth, fame, genius, and still, it wasn't enough. The certainty addiction from religion to self-help. We crave systems that promise answers. But as Kierkegaard knew, true meaning requires uncertainty. The moment we claim to have it figured out, we've lost it. The comparison curse Schopenhauer saw it first. We buy our happiness at the expense of others. Social media has weaponized this. We measure our lives against curated illusions, then wonder why we feel hollow. The fear that fuels the search underneath all of this lurks a deeper terror. What if there is no meaning? This fear is so paralyzing that we'll do anything to avoid it, even if it means clinging to false comforts. Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, observed that those who endured weren't the strongest, but those who could find purpose in suffering. Yet even Frankl's insight begs the question, why must we find meaning at all? What if it was never lost? The great misdirection here's the hidden force no one talks about. We've been taught to seek meaning outside ourselves. Religion tells us it's in divine will. Capitalism tells us it's in productivity. Pop spirituality tells us it's in manifesting our desires. But Tolstoy realized this is backwards. Meaning isn't something to be grasped. It's something to be recognized. Why can't we see it? Because we're trapped in what Huxley called the reducing valve of the brain, the mind's habit of filtering reality into concepts, labels, and judgments. We don't experience life. We experience our thoughts about life. And thoughts, by their nature, are dead things. Abstractions that can never capture the living moment. The silent rebellion Tolstoy's breakthrough came when he stopped trying to think his way out and instead looked at what was already there. A peasant, dying quietly in a ditch, doesn't ask if his life mattered. A tree doesn't question its purpose. Only humans suffer this peculiar madness, because only humans believe meaning must be earned. But what if the opposite is true? What if meaning was never something to be found, because it was never something we could lose? You check your phone again. Scroll, refresh, repeat. The ritual is automatic, a tick of the fingers, a twitch of the mind. But beneath the motion, there's a quiet desperation, a silent hope that the next notification, the next post, the next thing will finally deliver what the last one didn't, a reason to feel alive. This is the modern condition, not addiction to screens, but addiction to distraction, because distraction shields us from the unbearable question, what if my life has no point? Tolstoy saw this evasion in 19th century aristocrats drowning in wine and gossip. Today, we drown in algorithms. The medium changes, the escape remains the same. The three silent costs of the meaning crisis: the hollowing of experience. Studies in anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure, reveal a chilling trend. The more choices we have, the less we enjoy any of them. We vacation in paradise but obsess over Instagram likes. We achieve dreams only to wonder, is this all? Why? Because anticipation and memory are more vivid than the present moment. We're ghosts in our own lives, haunting past regrets and future fantasies while the present slips through our fingers. The manufactured self. Carl Jung warned of the persona, the mask we wear to meet societal expectations. But today, the persona isn't just a mask, it's a brand. We curate identities like products, polishing LinkedIn profiles, staging Instagram lives, performing happiness like actors in a play no one agreed to star in. The cost? A slow erosion of authenticity. We no longer ask, who am I? But who should I pretend to be? The spiritual bypass, even the quest for enlightenment, can become another trap. The rise of commodified spirituality, $1,000 retreats, manifesting journals, gurus selling nirvana turns wisdom into just another consumable. Tolstoy fell for this too. After his crisis, he devoured religious texts, desperate for answers. But dogma, he realized, was just another cage. The neurological trap. Here's what no one tells you. Your brain is wired to keep you searching, never finding. Dopamine doesn't reward achievement, it rewards anticipation. The moment you succeed, the chemical high fades. The default mode network, the brain's self-referential circuit, constantly narrates your life, spinning stories of lack and longing. Cognitive dissonance makes you cling to false beliefs rather than face existential discomfort. In other words, biology conspires to keep you hungry. Evolution doesn't care if you're fulfilled, it cares if you survive long enough to reproduce. The cultural hypnosis society doubles down on this wiring. Consumerism teaches that meaning lives in the next purchase. Hustle culture glorifies burnout as a badge of honor. Digital media trains you to crave constant validation. The result? A world of exhausted ghosts, chasing shadows they'll never catch. The Tolstoyan threshold, Tolstoy's darkest moment, standing with a rope in his barn, ready to end it all, was also his turning point. Not because he found an answer, but because he finally stopped running from the question. Most of us never reach this brink. We numb ourselves with Netflix, work, substances, or spiritual bypassing. But Tolstoy's genius was his refusal to look away. He understood. The search for meaning isn't the solution, it's the problem. Because meaning isn't a destination. It's the ground beneath your feet. There's a Zen parable about a man who spends his life searching for an ox, only to realize, at the end of his journey, that he was riding it the whole time. Tolstoy's revelation was no different. After years of anguish, he stumbled upon a truth so obvious it was invisible. Meaning isn't found, it's recognized. But how? How do you recognize something you've been conditioned to overlook? The first rebellion. Stop seeking. This sounds like a paradox, but it's the core of Tolstoy's insight. The mind is a meaning-making machine. It cannot not search for patterns, purpose, and narratives. But this very impulse is what obscures the truth. The artist who chases authenticity becomes a caricature of it. The spiritual seeker who obsesses over enlightenment ensures they'll never find it. The entrepreneur who believes success will fulfill them guarantees it won't. Tolstoy's breakthrough came when he abandoned the search entirely. Not through apathy, but through surrender, a radical acceptance that meaning might not live where he'd been taught to look. The second rebellion. Destroy the false self. Before Tolstoy could see clearly, he had to dismantle the identity that blinded him. The famous author, the nobleman, the intellectual, these were costumes, not truths. This is why his later works, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, A Confession, are so brutal. They strip away the illusions of status, achievement, and even morality to reveal the raw human beneath. Your turn. What labels have you mistaken for yourself? Provider, leader, victim, genius. What stories do you cling to that keep you trapped? I'll be happy when. Who would you be if you stopped performing? The third rebellion. Embrace the ordinary. After his crisis, Tolstoy didn't write another War and Peace. He farmed. He taught peasant children. He made shoes. Critics called it a waste of genius. But Tolstoy knew, the sacred lives in the mundane. Modern culture teaches us to despise the ordinary, to crave peak experiences, viral moments, and extraordinary destinies. But this is a trap. The more you mythologize meaning, the more you miss it in. The weight of a coffee cup in your hands, the sound of rain, when you have nowhere to bathe, a quiet exchange of glances with a stranger, as philosopher Albert Camus wrote. You will never be happy if you continue to search for what happiness consists of. You will never live if you are looking for the meaning of life. The fourth rebellion. Die before you die. Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich isn't just a story, it's an initiation. The protagonist only grasps meaning when he's forced to confront his mortality. This is the ultimate rebellion. Live as if you've already died. What would you stop pretending? Who would you stop apologizing to? What would you finally say, create, or release? Mortality isn't morbid. It's the only thing that makes life matter. The final step. Do nothing. This is the hardest instruction of all. Not meditation, not mindfulness, just being. Tolstoy's journals reveal a man who spent hours sitting in fields, watching clouds, doing nothing productive. In those empty spaces, meaning didn't need to be constructed. It announced itself. Try it. Put down your phone, step outside. For 5 minutes, do nothing but exist. The mind will scream that this is a waste of time. That's how you know it's working. There is a secret hidden in plain sight, one so obvious that the mind refuses to see it. You have spent your life believing that meaning is something to be attained. A revelation waiting at the end of some spiritual quest, a prize buried under layers of achievement, a treasure locked behind the door of enlightenment. But what if the door was never locked? What if you were already holding the treasure and simply didn't recognize it? The Tolstoyan epiphany. In his later years, Tolstoy did something astonishing. He stopped writing for intellectuals and began telling folktales to peasants. Stories so simple they seemed childish, about shoemakers, farmers, and beggars. Critics dismissed them. They missed the point. These weren't just stories. They were maps, because Tolstoy had discovered the ultimate truth. Meaning is not an idea to be understood. It is an experience to be lived. Not in the grand, sweeping gestures of history books, but in the infinitesimal moments we've been trained to ignore. The way sunlight pools on a kitchen floor, the involuntary laughter that escapes when you're with someone you love, the weight of a child falling asleep in your arms. This is why all attempts to solve meaning fail. You cannot solve what was never a puzzle. The final realization here is the truth that rewires existence. Life does not have meaning. Life is meaning, every breath, every heartbeat, every fleeting second of consciousness. This is the miracle we've been seeking, not beyond the veil, but in the fabric. Tolstoy's genius was his ability to strip away the layers of pretense until only this remained. That a starving man finds meaning in bread, that a dying man finds meaning in a hand to hold, that you, right now, find meaning wherever you choose to place your attention. There is no deeper secret. Why this feels impossible to accept. The mind rebels against this simplicity. It wants complexity. Grand theories feel more valuable than plain truth's exclusivity. The ego prefers meanings that must be earned, permanence. We crave meanings that death cannot touch, but Tolstoy's answer embraces none of these. It is simple, but not easy, universal, but deeply personal, fragile, and therefore precious. How to live this truth. Stop looking for more, the spiritual seeker's fatal error. Believing awakening lies in some future moment. It doesn't. The coffee you drank this morning, the way the steam curled, that was it. You just weren't there for it. Practice disobedience. Rebel against the culture that tells you to monetize your joy, the spirituality that makes enlightenment a trophy, the psychology that pathologizes normal human suffering. Become a connoisseur of the ordinary. Tolstoy's peasants knew something the intellectuals didn't. How to savor black bread, how to find warmth in a shared glance, how to sing while working. These aren't small things. They're the only things. The final question, now that you know, really know, that meaning was here all along. What will you do with this unbearable gift? Will you continue the charade of seeking? Or will you finally, recklessly, irreversibly live?